You don't have to find any extra time in your day to do that. You can build active travel into your everyday activity as part of the daily commute or a trip to your children's school or indeed to your school if you're a child. It avoids the need to find additional time in a constrained time budget to make those choices. So in London, we are spending very substantial resources on walking and cycling in particular, and these programmes are now really up there with the main public transport programme in a way which hasn't been true historically in terms of hundreds of millions of pounds, over tens of millions of pounds, going into encouraging cycling to and from schools, walking in central London and throughout London town centres, cycling to and from central London. So we really are putting very substantial resources into this, both under the previous mayor in particular under the mayorship of Boris Johnson. The third point is around children with obesity, and again several speakers refer to the importance of tackling child obesity. And Carl Pitton made a point about children's activity. We are, again, investing substantial amounts in London in school travel plans which encourage children to walk and cycle to school. We install cycle racks, we encourage cycle training, we encourage things called walking buses, maybe you've heard of, to get kids to walk to school with responsible adults. And that has a huge benefit in terms of embedding active travel, safe active travel into children's lives, and hopefully going on to then be active adults and regarding walking cycling as something they do, rather than something that they have to take up later on when they've already got into other habits in terms of travel choices. So we're working towards a target which I think we're going to reach to get 100% of London schools with the travel plan adopted, which is really a commitment, if you like, to undertaking sustainable travel to and from school, and our support takes a form of investment in crossings, cycle access and training, providing the things which the schools can't provide for themselves. The fourth thing is around, I think it's quite interesting, complex interactions between transport and social inequality, and Graeme will make reference to the very significant differences in terms of road casualties between different communities, particularly poorer children, much more likely to be involved in serious collisions than richer children, but also the fact that if you look just superficially at travel patterns in relation to income, people on lower incomes in some ways behave in the right way, i.e., for example, there are much higher levels of dependency on walking in poorer households than in richer households. I once went to see somebody in the social inclusion unit, that was then called in number 10, and when I was at Living Street, talking very eloquently about how fantastic we should encourage walking, and she thought, hold on a second, lots of walking trips made by people on lower incomes are what she called enforced, i.e., they can't afford a car, often public transport where they live is not very good, and therefore she comes up the image of a single mother on a low income with 2 children and a buggy walking a long way from her house or her flat to the local supermarket where the food quality might be very good, walking back in and thinking, I'd much rather not be doing this. We have to be quite careful about what it is we're trying to promote and how that needs to vary in terms of people's experiences. And people on America will typically also be walking around in the worst, most dangerous, least attractive environments. So we'll be quite careful about how we nuance some of these questions around transport, not to assume that more walking is always never a very good thing. And the final point I want to make is around governance. I thought it was really fundamental, this report picked out the question of governance. About 10 years ago, when I was running Living Street, I went to a number of both American cities and Scandinavian cities to try and understand what it was about those cities that made them do the right thing around the public realm and walking. And the one thing they all had in common was an elected mayor, or a series of elected mayors, with really significant political commitment and institutional momentum behind making those cities livable, and an institution, a city government and local government structure that were made that more rather than less likely. So Copenhagen, for example, a series of elected mayors in the 1970s began the transformation of Copenhagen into a walking cycling city. And a generation on, it is one of the world's greatest cities for walking cycling. But there was a series of commitments now built into the city government structure which make it very difficult not to promote cycling and walking as part of the transportation policy. So the two issues for me here are, one, to use horrible bureaucrat jargon, vertical integration between the London-wide institutions like TfL at the top and the boroughs more locally, but also horizontal integration between the transport organisations, both London-wide and locally, and the other institutions like PCTs and Express London. Until we get both of those dimensions properly stitched together, which is now increasingly happening, I think we're going to have to, we will struggle for it to really work. So those are my first 5 points. Put prevention first, absolutely. Daily active travel is fundamental to this debate because it avoids obesity and improves people's daily lives. We have to tackle child obesity, and schools are the key platform for doing that. There are complex interactions between transport and inequality, which we have to understand and measure with nuance and response. And finally, governance, both vertically and horizontally, really has to